Greetings again, passionate audience of the Perspective series, to another session of exploration into soft skills and their place in the paper and allied industries. As always, this series is moderated by me, Garrett Fisher, and the TAPI Young Professional Division. It is being brought to what I hope is your new normal as we begin to emerge from the part of our lives where living like a hermit was totally acceptable and pants were completely optional. With this rebirth of social interaction, what better time to dip your toe back into the water of genuine human connections than by listening to a conversation specifically dedicated to soft skill usage in the industries that TAPI serves. Even better, the hardships that were experienced this past year were often unavoidable, but there is a joy in the air with going back to normal. This positivity in the face of adversity is an equally important concept brought forward by the individual joining us today. Like usual, I like to review that the purpose of this series is to focus on the need to develop skills deemed as soft in the workplace in your career. Although we originally created this concept to help young professionals chase after the millennial manager job that are popping up everywhere, our conversations have expanded since then as we have actually found that desire for soft skill development does not stop with young professionals. It seems we have stumbled upon a lifelong learning opportunity with this concept. So wherever you are in your career, we hope that these casual conversations with the groundbreaking individuals a part of the paper and allied industries offer you some type of information you can take with you in that next step of your career. Our primary desire is that you may take away an ability to confidently invest your time into the career stock market by determining what habits, hobbies, and opportunities you need to invest time in now that will pay dividends later in life. It is now my honor to introduce another individual to this growing Perspectives family. As I may have already mentioned, his positive attitude is contagious, fully admitting to me that he's at home standing in who knows what within a paper mill trying to solve a problem. On top of this, the diversity of experience and leadership opportunities he has been introduced to at such a young age certainly makes an impression regarding his abilities as a leader. Without further ado, welcome Kyle Duffy.
Thank you, Garrett, and hello, listeners.
So Kyle currently works as a finished products manager at International Paper, where he manages 2 paper machines and the end product logistics departments, all done at the ripe age of just 32 years old. Not only that, but his impact at International Paper has been substantial, leading to forward role progression 9 times since entering the industry. If you're looking for someone that is an expert at immersing themselves into a new team, Kyle is your guy. He clearly has figured out how to buck the trend of being the new kid in school. So let's figure out how he has done it. So Kyle, my first question is a burning one. Everyone knows that paper mills are tough. The long hours, the lack of climate control, the big split-second decisions, the list goes on. It should come as no surprise, considering these facets of the job, that superstitions of talking about the machine running good develop in paper mills. Against all these odds, you maintain an incredibly positive attitude, making you very approachable and genuine. How do you maintain this attitude in the demanding atmosphere of a paper mill?
I think it's a great question. I think it's real, not only for now and the new normal, as we are now calling it, but also just in the reality of manufacturing. I think an overall perspective for where we sit and how blessed we are as people live in the U.S., not worrying about the next meal, not worrying about the roofs over our heads. It's hard to forget those things when you're in the grind, when you're out there in who knows what, right? Working long hours. But at the same point in time, I think the ability to take a step back and just think on a grander scale, bigger picture, and really reflect on how lucky and fortunate we are. I know I myself am very fortunate to work for International Paper, to be someone that's given so many opportunities to lead at such a young age. And all of that will go further on with, I'm sure, further questions specific to that. But I think it's within me naturally to stop and reflect and think big picture about how blessed we are, even when times seem so tough.
And what a great mindset. I think it really actually highlights what we've talked about all along is, responsibilities as a leader, and you embed that in not only your work, but also how you view life. You take that step back rather than drilling in on this really specific problem that you're having or everything that's going wrong or a specific project. You take that step back and say, what does the overall picture look like? Just like you probably do as a leader in your team. I think that is just highlighting your abilities there.
Thank you.
So continuing on with regards to your social prowess, young leaders often get pushback from seasoned professionals due to their lack of experience. That's not new. So how do you navigate these situations? And what soft skills do you use to make these conversations easier?
Yeah, to me, that's such a phenomenal question, because the reality is experience is this double-edged sword. Everyone expects you to have experience, but in order to get experience, you have to be there to create that moment. I know a mill manager of mine in the past used to ask me a question and say, how long does it take, Kyle, to get 20 years of experience? Well, by definition, while it's such a simple question, the reality is we're also always trying to figure out how to do that faster, right? But by definition, 20 years is 20 years. So to me, the best piece of advice I think I could give someone, and the piece of advice I routinely give for whether it be an entry-level college engineer or someone that's just trying to learn and be part of it, is be present. The best way to learn is to be there when it happens, right? That does not mean working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. What it does mean is if you hear something on the radio, if you're carrying the radio, if you see an email that a group is troubleshooting and doesn't understand what's going on with a process upset, if you hear about a bearing that we're watching that may about to fail, be there for the event to be able to ask the technicians, the operators, the engineers, the people that are deeply involved in that problem and the troubleshooting. If you're there and you're seen as a sponge, people will truly go out of their way to help you, because they'll see the fact that this employee, this young individual that doesn't have experience is at least trying to get it, right? So I think far too often people will feel overwhelmed to try to get in the middle of something going on because they feel disconnected from it. But the best way to break through that glass is just to do it, right? So if you just break through and realize step one is accept the fact that I don't know, and step two, be willing to ask, being present is the best way to make all of that happen. And in doing that, you're then seen as someone that's on the team, your results will improve, your engagement in the team will improve, and your ownership of the team, which all of that ties together, right? So while it seems so simple, I think the courage to do that is very real. And it's very easy for someone to say to a 22-year-old, 24-year-old, whatever it is, a few years out of school, well, just be there. Right, but step one is recognizing that, and step two is building the courage just to do it and know that at some point in time, the most experienced person was in that exact same footprint, whatever years ago it was, right? So how do you close that gap of experience? Start by being present, and the rest usually takes care of itself.
I think that really highlights your soft skill of, just being personable, not being, that individual that's just I'm gonna focus on my stuff and not worry about other people's problems, or I'm just gonna, sit in my office and do the things that I need to do. It's getting out there, asking the questions, actually having a personal connection with the employees that are gonna have to help you down the road. I think that this answer really highlights that. And again, as we've talked about, you're a very personal individual. It's very clearly helped you in your leadership roles coming out of school and even now. So I really like that answer, Kyle.
Thank you. Yeah, really, if you think about what this entire platform is, talking about soft skills with young engineers, it all ties together, right? The reality is all of these different skills that we talk about, all of the different skills we're expected to have, all start with soft skills, because soft skills gives you that avenue. It opens the door for you to experience that many different people, different backgrounds, and things you would otherwise not naturally do, right? So the soft skills is what ties it all together. It's what makes a company, because a company is full of people, right? And you can't do those things by being individuals and being robots. We have to work together to make that happen. And soft skills is how we do that. So to me, I think overall the fact that this group is promoting that through the TAPI organization, I think is just exactly what we need to be doing right now.
So let's talk about leadership here. The diversity of experience you have is downright incredible. It seems you're moving on to a new challenge and a new team almost every year since you've entered your career with IP. What is the most valuable non-technical skill you have developed from having such a wide variety of jobs?
I think being open to try something new, being open to be stretched, to take a position in an area that you're not familiar with. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? So how do you gain experience? You just got to be willing to do it. So be present to do that, but you also have to be willing and open to try something that will likely feel overwhelming, will feel scary, will feel like you're not adequate or fit to do it. I think as pulp and paper, one of the benefits of our industry is we are very forward thinking in the sense of leadership, meaning we give young leaders the chance to lead very early, right? So in doing that, typically you won't be the expert of all of that equipment. You haven't had the time to do that. But I think if you focus on being open to learning new things, being open to being part of a team, being open to not being the smartest person in the room, all of that will help you give you that opportunity to really drive things forward. So you think non-technical, really it's being open to being vulnerable. And then as far as for me, my background, my experiences, I would likely say every single position I've taken, I took it with a healthy amount of fear. Fear that I didn't know how everything worked, fear that I wasn't an expert, fear that I'd have to lean on some of my team, people that worked directly for me for knowledge. But all of that allowed us to build better, stronger bonds and more respect amongst one another, being open to learn, right, from those different people. So I think being open to realize that, and the fact that I've been willing to take moves in positions in parts of the mill I've never worked in, but almost kind of being excited to try something new, stretch my legs, see where that would take the company, the team, the mill at the time. So I think doing that is something that more and more pulp and paper, international paper, or anyone associated with the TAPI organization can probably understand and likely relate to, that we need people that are willing to try something totally different, and senior leaders just have to trust that we're going to put them in a position to be successful, right? The soft skills hopefully meld that bridge from one position to the next.
Yeah, thanks for that answer, Kyle. You know, we often talk about books on this series, but I think today we're actually going to go the movie route. From your answer, what I think of is immediately that movie Yes Man. Although it's been a while since that movie came out, I think everyone's just got to be willing to say yes. You know, whether it's you have a little bit of fear, the only way you grow is by moving forward. That's what I've heard plenty of times in my life already. And that Yes Man might be a movie that we might want to revisit here. Over the next couple months.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I think in general, if you're going to bring parallels, I've always made a joke and said I was just the only guy in the room that put his hand up and said, "I'll do that." So Yes Man is a way to think about that, saying, yes, I'm willing to being open to different opportunities and to being stretched and taking things that may make me feel uncomfortable. Because again, there's a healthy amount of respect and fear that comes in any new challenge, whether it be personal life, whether it be related to or not related to work.
Okay, so you've clearly been through the ringer with the number of jobs you've had, the opportunities to perform. With all that experience, what do you think is the hardest trait to develop if leadership is truly your goal?
Yeah, I think to me, if you think about struggle, I would say balance. And while it's a very simple word, it means a lot. And I don't just mean work-life balance. I also mean understanding yourself. So while I'm definitely an extrovert, right, by nature of just how I was raised and who I am as an individual, I'm also very results driven. So in all of that, being a people person, being results driven is not always working in the exact same direction. Sometimes you have to balance and choose which one will win when things do come to compete. And the reality is life is not so easy that things never compete. That's okay. But some of our priorities, some of the things that we truly believe in, you will have to decide as a leader, as someone within your family, when are you going to choose this over that, right? So to me, sometimes I will need to, at least internally, decide to push out a deadline because something's going on in someone's personal life, and it's just the right thing to do. Now, that's very, very easy to say, but those decisions can be 10, 20, 30 of those decisions a day where you're constantly reprioritizing, readjusting. New information comes in, you have to kind of audible. So I think the toughest thing for me has always been, have I balanced the way I need to? Have I balanced my decisions to drive my team to get the results, but also to keep my team engaged, right? To not burn people out, to be flexible and understanding that life is tough. If you think about it, COVID really is a case study in leadership. So in manufacturing, almost every day, we look forward at how our new normal is going to look with really no idea. We're in uncharted waters. We are captains of ships driving into just the darkness, right? And we're just, as we sail in that direction, we really don't know what's in front of us. So to me, the hardest trait is really that balance, is understanding where we're trying to go with our teams, with our facilities, with improving safety, performance, environmental excellence, and overall operation, and doing all of that and balancing that perfectly is tough. I can very easily look back and think and self-reflect on a number of examples that, obviously hindsight's 2020, but you look back and think, I probably didn't balance that like I should have, or, now looking back at it and self-reflecting, I probably could have done a better job at choosing the other priority, right? Because maybe it just wasn't the right time. But I think regardless of facility, of position, and really of job, balance is definitely the hardest thing that any of us are asked to do, with the world changing all around us, with while our finished products may not change directly, our customers may. So the world can be flipped upside down so quickly. And then being able to play the hand dealt and doing that, playing the card at the right time and understanding what the end goal is by far the hardest thing I think any of us do.
Yeah, so you use the analogy, COVID was a case study in leadership. I'm going to use another analogy with your balance discussion is, with any type of leadership position, it's kind of like you're standing on top of that rock and you have to have enough balance so that the rocks that the paper industry are going to throw at you, so those big decisions, that you have the ability to take those and not fall off that rock. That's where the leadership starts to fall, is when you're not able to balance all those items that are being tossed at you on a daily basis. In the paper industry especially, just because oftentimes there's so much going on. So, that's my analogy for the day. That's your analogy for the day. I think they kind of just, highlight that balance that you need to have for a leadership position.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in your analogy too, when I picture that, I think some of those rocks you need to catch, some of the rocks you need to dodge, and some you're holding actively and you need to drop to be able to grab something else, right? So to your point, making those decisions every minute of every day is all part of that.
So as we already discussed, many of us are coming out of a year with very limited social interaction. Along with this, there's actually seems to be a rebirth in the interest of mentorship as people seek to connect with others in the industry. This actually led to the Young Professional Division putting on a Meet Your Mentor event to try and match mentors and mentees together as requests continued to pile in. I also am aware that you, Kyle, recently began a mentorship as well. Now that you have that knowledge, is there a time in your life where you view mentorship as the most valuable? Along with this, what do you recommend to individuals in preparation for a mentorship?
Yeah, so I think As far as preparation, something that I do is I set up my mentor calls with my mentor once a quarter, and in doing so, I try to build a pretty structured agenda, at least at the time, of what I thought I wanted to talk about, but also questions, not just questions for me to ask my mentor, also to give my mentor an opportunity to self-reflect on some of the things that they're doing upon myself and ask for feedback, right? So to almost deliberately create a two-way dialogue. Not that there wouldn't be some naturally, but I think so. The pre-planning to do that, to me, I think quarterly is always appropriate, but starting up with some type of cadence of when to meet and how often, what is enough time in between to really create good dialogue, to be able to collaborate, to be able to give yourself the chance before that meeting to self-reflect, I think is important, to build that really good agenda for what you want to cover. And then the other piece I think is important as far as preparation is I would not plan any more than a year in advance. So I would set, the way I did was I set up my 4 calls with my mentor for quarterly. And then at the last one in my agenda, I built basically time for us to talk about how is this going. So let's check and adjust together. Is quarterly working? Is it not working? Do you feel value in this as a mentor? Because it's really not just about the mentee, right? In that example, I'm the mentee, but I want to make sure my mentor feels like they look forward to these calls because it gives them the time to take a deep breath, to sit, to not sit there and watch pie their process, right? But really think about people, think about development, think about what can I do to grow and develop the next generation. And in that last call, it's, do you see enough value to continue this and for me to schedule another year, right? And I think while that seems simple, I also think there's a huge sign of respect from the mentee to the mentor in doing that, because it's showing respecting their time, right? So time is that thing that everyone wants more of, but we also know that a watch is a watch, right? So the hours are set, it's definite, and there's very few things rigid in our lives, but time is one of them. So I think I would recommend to anyone looking to set up a mentor relationship as the mentee to set it up for no more than a year, and then as part of that to look forward at that point in time to make sure that they still also see value. Garrett, your question about when in life does it make the most sense? It's tough because personally I'm biased by my own experiences, right? So for me, I would say my first couple of calls was really about balance in personal and work life. So at that point in time, I made my first relocation with a family. So all relocations before that was either just with, I guess, my fiance at the time before that, and no children. So this was my first move with children. And so I think we talked a lot about that. So for me, when's the best time? Me being biased and how it played out for me, I saw tons of value in having a mentor relationship formal in that period of time of my life. So big life moves. I was able to ask that individual what it was like for them to move with multiple kids. He has 4 children, right? So nowhere near what I went through, but also he can relate and kind of laugh and joke around what he's learned over now a couple moves with a family that every time has changed in size. So I think any time a big life move is about, I think is the appropriate time, but I don't want the group that watches this to feel restricted, constrained, or in any way, shape, or form like they're not fitting the mold. Because the reality is there is no mold. Any point in time where you want to sit and really talk about career, talk about personal balance, talk about where you want to go with your team and what you see as opportunities that you want to close or improve to help the group, there's no time like the present, right? So if anyone has an inkling that there may be value in them creating that relationship and starting that program for themselves as a mentor or as a mentee, don't wait. Because the reality is you may have people that are completely flattered that you even thought of them as a mentor. And that right there will immediately build that bond and relationship that can likely last a career. And the opposite, you as a mentor, if you see someone that you really feel like, I feel like I can help this individual, I feel like I can self-reflect and look back at my own experiences and give them some good guidance, whether they want it or not, I think someone else receiving that information might feel totally grateful that you're willing to spend your time to talk about them. and to give them advice, to give them feedback, to tell them, if I knew this at 22, man, my life would be different now. So now that I see that that's where you are in your career, here's some advice I have for you. No matter what, there's no time like the present, and I really think that there is so much soft skills that can come out of, and relationships that can come out of that relationship. So I would say for anyone that's hesitant and thinking about it, I would recommend to do it, because worst case, what you can always do is have 2 or 3 calls and then decide now is not the right time.
Yeah, along with that, I want to pick out the fact that you said that, the individual that you were a mentee to also had, children, and that was a connection point. I think that whole, having something in common, having something where, not just professionally they can provide to you, but personally is also very important. I started a mentorship about 6 months ago, and my mentor is not really even directly tied to the paper industry. It doesn't have to be something where you're exactly moving towards professionally, because let's be honest, a lot of mentor mentee is more personal. How do you personally grow yourself and your experiences? It's not how do you handle this technical problem. You have individuals within your own network that'll be able to support that. Mentorship is oftentimes more dedicated to personal growth towards whatever your next role is going to be.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, I chose my mentor as someone I'd worked with years ago. But to your point, Garrett, I chose the individual more so because I respect him as a man, as a family man, as a man that's very involved in his religion, and also on top of that, someone that I looked at as someone I've always respected on a career level. But to your point, that was not the first reason. That was the third or fourth down, that he happened to also work for my company, and there's some synergies there. But the reality is those first 3 things probably would have won in a battle between those 3 or just career. So that's a great point. Pick someone that you really respect. You respect where they are in their life and how they handle themselves, how they communicate, and because there's always some way to learn and grow.
Well, once again, listeners, our time has come to an end. I and the YP division would like to extend our thanks to Kyle for sitting down with us today. So, thanks again, Kyle. Again, you're a wealth of knowledge. Do you have any last words for our listeners, or anything that you'd like to tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a lot of ways, this is supported and sponsored by the TAPI organization. And when we talk about soft skills, we talk about technical aptitude, we talk about connections and relationships. That really is what the TAPI group is all about. So for those that are involved, stay involved. That network is huge. The network is huge for you now where you are currently and professionally, but also beyond. So everything we talked about with some of these soft skills, with mentor relationships, the TAPI group can help build a lot of those bridges. So continue to stay involved, continue to branch out, and continue to be open-minded to learn from others, because that's really what we're all here for.
Thank you for those comments, Kyle. We certainly hope that you found the discussion to be useful, and please check out more perspective content by visiting the TAPI Young Professional website and clicking the YP Perspectives link. Thanks again for everyone for listening, and we hope to see you again soon.